Hello class, we're about to start Unit 1 Integers. Now, it says Section A, adding and subtracting integers. The set of integers consists of the whole numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and their opposites, -1, -2, -3, -4. We usually visualize the integers on a number line. The concept of opposite is very important with integers. Now, we could take a quick look here. So we can mark these. If you notice here, 0 has no opposite. But 1 and -1, if you notice, they're the same distance from 0. Opposites are the same distance from 0. Like 2 and -2 or -2 and 2. Both of them are 2 units from 0. And then we add -3 and 3. And then also -4. And also +4. So now the concept of opposite is very important with integers. So we have our examples here. We have the number 6, its opposite is -6, and we can write it out in words, -6 or the -6. We have -3, and then this right here, the opposite notation is the opposite of -3, which gives us +3 or 3. Then 8. -8, we have the opposite of -8, which gives us +8 or 8. Then we have 5. We have the opposite of 5, which is -5, and then that would be -5 or -5. Then we have -1, the opposite of -1, which is positive 1 or the number 1. Then we have 0. There's no opposite to 0, so it'd just be 0. And then it'd be 0 or 0. Now, the tricky part about adding and subtracting integers is that you cannot trust the operation symbol. Sometimes to perform an addition problem you add, but sometimes you actually subtract. The same is true for subtraction problems. Once you have determined that you are combining two integers through addition or subtraction, here's what you need to do. Go through and change any opposite of negative to a positive. Look at the sign directly in front of each number. If the two signs are the same, add the values. If the two signs are different, subtract the values. The answer will have the same sign as the larger number. So let's take a look here. Now this here is an example of what we just talked about. If you notice, both of these numbers have the same sign, so we would add them together, and that gave us -8. You add them together and carry the sign. Just like we've done traditionally with 3 and 5 here. Both are positive. We add them together and carry the sign. And now, when we have a situation where they have opposite signs, we know minus and a parenthesis of negative will give us a positive. So we have a -5 and we have a +3. We would do regular subtraction. We just make this 5 minus 3, which is 2. But we will look at these two digits here, and we notice that without the signs, 5 is larger than 3, and since 5 has a negative sign, your final answer will have a negative sign. Okay, so now we need to apply this here. These have the same sign, so you add them together. 8 and 6 we know is 14, and we will carry the sign, so it'll be a -14. Now, -9 plus 15, they have different signs. So in your mind, you could think 15 minus 9, which we know would be 6. And since 15 is larger than 9, we will keep it positive. Now here, -4 minus 7. Now we could rewrite this. You can know this in your mind as -4 plus a -7. And when we know we have the same sign, we will add them together. 4 and 7 is 11. And we will carry their sign, which is negative. Now we come here. We have 5 minus a negative 10. When we have minus in front of a parenthesis like this, we'll take the opposite of what's inside the parenthesis. So now that will become 5 plus 10. And 5 plus 10 is 15. Now, we have negative 4 minus a negative 6. So this would be negative 4, and minus a negative 6 would be plus 6. So negative 4 plus 6 will give us positive 2. Because remember, in your mind, you would be thinking 6 minus 4, which is 2. And since 6 is larger than 4 and is positive, 2 will remain positive. Now we have 2 minus 18. Now if we rewrite this as 2 plus a negative 18, they have opposite signs. So we would think in our mind of 18 minus 2, which is 16. However, now we know our answer is going to involve 16, but since 18 is larger than 2, we take its sign, so it'll be a negative 16. Now we have negative 7 plus a negative 7. Remember, we add these together, which would be 7 and 7 is 14, and carry a sign, so it'll be a negative 14. Now we have negative 7 minus a negative 7. So this will become negative 7 plus 7. Now you notice they have opposite signs, so we will subtract. 7 minus 7 is 0, so we know our final answer is 0 here. Now we come down to this problem here. We have negative 8 minus a negative 5. So it would be negative 8 plus 5 and plus 7 minus 1. Now, negative 8 plus 5, again, we go off to the side. That would be the same as 8 minus 5, which is 3. But since 8 has the negative and is bigger than 5, this would be negative 3 plus 7 minus 1. Now, we'll go to the side again. These have opposite signs. This would be the same as saying 7 minus 3 is 4. And since 7 is larger than 3 and is positive, this will remain positive 4. And we know 4 minus 1 will just give us 3. Now we come here to the next problem. We have negative 9 minus 2. Now remember, in a previous problem, let's go back up here. When we had negative 4 minus 7, I told you in your brain you should be thinking negative 4 plus a negative 7. And that would apply here. Negative 9 minus 2 is the same thing as saying negative 9 plus 2, which is negative 11. And then we'll bring down our plus 4, minus a negative 3 will become positive 3, minus 5. Now, we have negative 11 plus 4. That's the same as saying 11 minus 4, which is 7. But since 11 is the larger number and it has a negative sign, this will be negative 7 plus 3 minus 5. Now, negative 7 plus 3, again, this would be 7 minus 3, which is 4. And since 7 is the larger number and negative, it would be negative 4 minus 5. Now, just like we did up here, they have the same sign. Negative 4 minus 5 is a negative 9. Now we scroll down. We have negative 43 plus 9. Now, they have opposite signs, so in our head, we will be thinking 43 minus 9, which is 34. But since the 43 is larger and it has the negative sign, it would be a negative 34. Now 2 minus 5, again, that could be looked at as 2 plus a negative 5. Different signs, we will subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. But since 5 is larger and has the negative sign, it would be negative 3. Now we come down here, negative 433 minus 9. Again, in your head, you should have a negative 433 plus a negative 9. They have the same sign, so you add them together, and that will give you 442, but carry the sign. And last but not least, negative 2 plus 5. We'll be thinking 5 minus 2 is 3. Since 5 is the larger number and it's positive, your final answer would be positive 3. Now, we scroll to the next page. It says, once you have determined, well, wait a minute, let me go back here and read this. This is section B, multiplying and dividing integers. It says, once you have determined that you are multiplying two integers, proceed as follows. Multiply, divide the numbers as usual, ignoring the signs. The sign of the answer is positive if the two numbers had the same sign, negative if the two numbers had different signs. So basically it goes like this. If you're dealing with two digits, if they have the same sign, whether positive or negative, your answer will be positive. If they have different signs and it's two numbers multiplied or divided to each other, if they have opposite signs, then your answer will be negative. It still will produce the number, but it's the sign that you will be looking for. Because 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 2 times 3 will give you a 6, but you have to add the negative sign. So the multiplication remains the same. So let's apply this. We have two numbers here. We have a positive and negative, so we know it's going to be negative. 8 times 4 is still 32. So your final answer is a negative 32. Then we have here negative 5 times negative 7. A negative times a negative is positive because they're the same sign and there's only two numbers. So 5 times 7 is 35. Here we have two numbers, opposite signs. Our answer is going to be negative. 54 divided by 6 is 9. Now this is, even though this is a fraction, this is division. So we have a negative and a positive. So we know our answer is going to be negative. 33 divided by 11 is 3. So it's negative 3. Now we come here. The same sign multiplied together. A negative times a negative is positive, and 3 times 7 is 21. Then we have two numbers here. Same sign. Negative 50 divided by negative 10. Negative and divided by a negative is positive. 50 divided by 10 is 5. Now, if you notice here, we have more than two numbers here. So this is what we would do. We would multiply this in groups of 2. So we have negative 2 times negative 5. So we would do negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. Then we'll bring down our negative 1 and our 6. Now, a positive 10 times a negative 1, they have opposite signs. So this will become negative 10. And we'll bring down our 6. Negative 10 times 6, opposite signs, so it'll be negative 10 times 6 is 60. Now, we're going to approach this a little differently with the next problem. We could do it the same way we did the last problem, but we're going to do it like this. Since this is all multiplication, if you count the signs, if it's all multiplication or all division, if you count the signs, if you have an even number of negative signs, then your answer is going to be positive. If you have an odd number of negative signs, your answer is going to be negative. Going back to this problem here, it was all multiplication. And if we count the negative signs, we have 1, 2, 3. That's an odd number, so your answer was negative. Here we have, this is all multiplication. We count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That means your answer is going to be positive. So now we could do regular multiplication. 2 times 5 is 10. Times 1 times 6. 10 times 1 is 10. And then times 6 will give us a positive 60. Now, the same rules for adding and subtracting and multiplying, dividing integers apply to positive and negative fractions or decimals. So the rules we went over for multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting, these integers also apply to fractions and decimals. Okay, now we go to page 4, which is section C, application of integers. Examples: write an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division problem and then solve the problem. Okay, now we come to problem number 1. If the temperature was negative 7 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 a.m. and it rose 4 degrees by 7 a.m. and then rose another 9 degrees in the hour from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., what was the temperature at 8 a.m.? So we look here, we start off with a negative 7 degrees Fahrenheit.